Rafe Monroe only meant to smack the panel until the whining resonance stopped. It was the universal engineer's fix, the percussive maintenance taught by exasperated mentors and spiteful machinery alike. The problem was that on Lythara Prime, the panel was a living ribbon of photonic flora called the Luminal Veil, and the smack translated through a slither of bioelectric handshake as, "I volunteer my currents to yours in public." The veil shivered with a satisfied purr. The promenade did that quiet thing crowds do before the storm. Somewhere, an archivist inhaled like a kettle. Somewhere else, a camera drone leaned in with predatory curiosity, its lens dilating like gossip. And on the veil's far side, a tall Virellian with sea-glass skin and constellations pulsing under it tilted her head, the way diplomats do when their day just got interesting. "Please tell me you didn't just pet the city's marriage curtain," said a human tech behind him through clenched teeth. "I debugged it," Rafe said, because the only way out was through. It was throwing harmonics. "You stroked it," came a second voice, silky, amused, and too close to the veil's humming edge. The Virellian stepped forward, and the light touched her like a conspirator. "And offered your current in the seeing of witnesses." Her eyes were the rare dark of deep water. "I am Kal'Sha of the diplomatic wing. If you mean to retract a public vow, human, you will want a very witty lawyer and a better translator. Call this a tutorial episode. If this scandal is your kind of trouble, subscribe to Starbase Stories before the next lightboard blinks. The Veil has a way of making second chances public. Rafe's earbud chirped with the dry voice of the City Registrar, translated into pleasantly neutral terran. Consort petition received and pre-validated. Please hold for identity affirmation and oath scheduling. The word consort slid under his ribs like a screwdriver. Around them, the promenade's biolume signage delicately sprouted ads for vow cakes, current braids, and conflict mediation, now with 12% less blood pressure. The veil sang a harmonic that made his arm hair applaud. "I didn't propose," Rafe told Kal'Sha, hands up, palms out. "I apologize to a piece of architecture. The veil is a person in the civic code," Kal'Sha said, not unkindly. Up close, the glow along her collarbones resolved into little storms, expanding and collapsing with her breath. "And apologies are vows if they include correction promised and touch given. You gave touch. You promised correction. The veil returned warmth. That's a match." She tilted a finger at his chest, then at the veil. "Also, you have very noisy current. It's caffeine," he said, "and stress." Her smile was slow, like orbit decay, delicious. The registrar's drone arrived, a silver seed with a polite halo of text. "Excuse me, consort candidates." It projected a civic form at chest height, a simple lattice of spheres Rafe could drag with his fingertips. The header pulsed, consort oath, initial tether. He could feel the code behind it, a language of charge, resonance, and timing, like a song about consent that the city insisted you dance to. "I'm not trying to insult your—" Rafe gestured at the opalescent city in all its humming glory, religious municipal feelings. "But where I'm from, touching broken things is how we show love. To tools," he added, "mostly." Kal'Sha's laugh was a sparkle down the veil's edge. "How fortunate. Here, fixing is foreplay." He choked on absolutely nothing and then unhelpfully blushed. She noticed her clavicle stars brightened. "So," he said, resting his attention back to the form, "hypothetically, if a human inadvertently proposes to your infrastructure, is there an off-ramp?" "There is a right of clarifying intent," Kal'Sha said, "public, witnessed, with measurable exchange. If your current recoils from mine, the city records incompatibility, no bond. If not," she lifted a shoulder. The veil echoed the motion, light flowing like water over a stone. "You become my consort by dawn." "By dawn," he squeaked in a locally dignified way. "The veil is dramatic," she said. "And we obey it because the last time we didn't, the Western arcologies sprouted poems for a month. They were obscene in hexameter." The registrar's drone cleared its throat in 3 agreeable chimes. "Scheduling clarifying intent trial. Soonest slot, Promenade 4 in 23 minutes. Audience capacity, open. Dress code, non-conductive below knees. The halo twinkled. Reminder, all apologies spoken into the veil are oath-binding. Please choose your words with low-voltage care. A ring of small children, Virellian and human, had formed, holding concession drinks and the kind of rapt attention normally reserved for fireworks and parental mistakes. A human auntie waved a glowing foam finger that read, "Ship him." The cameras multiplied like enthusiastic fungi. 23 minutes is soon, Rafe said, because numbers were safe. Kal'Sha studied him the way ships study storms. Do humans prefer long engagements? Humans prefer not to electrocute themselves for romance. Her eyes smiled. That is the point of the trial. We don't electrocute, we taste. He really should have stopped blushing by now. Look, Kal'Sha, I respect your customs. I will even testify under oath that the veil purrs, but I don't want to trap you in trap. Her glow cooled, then warmed again, like she'd decided on mercy. If I did not wish this, I would have stepped sideways and let the veil dull. It listens to me as I listen to it. She stepped closer, within the luminous breath of the curtain. Also, you were adorable when you said debug. It is the boldest flirtation I have heard all week. That was not flirting. Then your flirting must be devastating, she said. Show me at the trial. He glanced at the time, hovering above the drone. 20 minutes. The promenade's vendors had already pivoted. A stand now offered consort corn, which was just roasted kelp cones with glitter salt, and a booth labeled vow braids human-friendly, braided colored fiber optics into eager wrists. A small chorus of Virellian elders gathered, their biolume dimmed to council cool, which matched the severe line of their high collars. Institutional opposition, he thought, clocking the potential for rules wielded like knives. Kal'Sha followed his gaze. I invited them, she said. If we are to play by the veil's laws, we do it in full view. Public validation is safer than private rumor. You want this to be fair. I want this to be ours, she said simply. If you withdraw, we will craft a clean withdrawal. If you stay, we will be brilliant. She tipped her head. Either way, you will stop slapping holy things. I tapped, he murmured. You caressed, she corrected, eyes bright, unconcerned. And it liked you. The drone chimed again, cheerily inexorable. Contestants, please proceed to Promenade 4 for the clarifying intent trial. Reminder, speaking the phrase, I promise, constitutes an immediate tether. Rafe swallowed, squared his shoulders, and let his hands fall to his sides, fingers flexing as if to find the rhythm of a new tool. The veil's hum found him instead, a note that felt unreasonably like his name said in the dark. Kal'Sha extended a hand, palm up, currents whirling like galaxies under skin. Walk with me, she said. He took it, and the promenade erupted. Voices, light, law, and a row of elders lifted a tablet that would, in 19 minutes, either save him or sanctify him. The clarifying intent dais unfolded from the promenade floor like a polite sea creature offering a shell, ringed by safety rails labeled "Do Not Lick" in 6 languages and one smug pictogram of a tongue with a lightning bolt through it. The veil curved down to meet it, thinning into a translucent ribbon that hummed on a note just below Rafe's heartbeat, like it was practicing his name. Opposite him, Kal'Sha stood with her palms open and bare. No ceremonial gloves, no diplomatic distance. Her glow gathered close under her skin, as if she'd cinched starlight into a corset. Between them hovered the Registrar's drone, its halo now displaying trial by current, kindness standard, and underneath, an encouraging subheader. Remember, this is not a fight. The elders took their places on a raised bench, bioluminescence dimmed to judicial grey. One unfurled a scroll that was definitely just for show, which Rafe respected. Tradition liked props. It helped audiences know when to cheer. A trio of teen Virellians in matching jackets had made a banner that read, "Currently into you," with a tasteful waveform. A human kid in a booster seat asked loudly if consort meant kissing with electricity, and his aunt whispered that it meant holding hands very responsibly. Kal'Sha's mouth tilted at the corners, the kind of almost smile that could get a man convicted of optimism. Contestants, chimed the drone. Clarifying intent proceeds in 3 measures: honesty, exchange, harmonization. You will speak one truth about desire, you will trade one safe current, and you will attempt a shared hum. If the veil recoils, bond denied without stigma. If the veil warms, bond affirmed with public blessing. Please avoid the phrase, "I promise." Our liability insurer thanks you. Rafe flexed his fingers. Non-conductive below the knee was the dress code. He wore the loner sandals that felt like someone had skinned a yoga mat. His tool belt was confiscated for optics, which meant the part of him that felt safest with a torque wrench was now inventing emergency plans using only lint and grit. He glanced at Kal'Sha. The veil loved her. It curved in, shivering, like a cat considering a lap. "Honesty," the drone prompted. Kal'Sha nodded to him. The faintest go on. He cleared his throat, which felt absurdly loud after the veil's soft music. "Truth about desire," he said, and the dais translated for the crowd in cool text arcs. "I desire to not embarrass you, to fix what I broke without breaking anything else, and to understand why your bones look like comets when you laugh." The veil thrummed, a pleased undertone. Somewhere in the back, a vendor yelled, "2 braids for the consort," and was shushed by 3 grandmothers working as a chorus. Kal'Sha's glow brightened along her throat. "Truth about desire," she said, voice steady. "I desire to be seen as I am, and not as the veil requires me to be. To test boldness that is not cruelty, and to know if your hands can be gentle on purpose, not only by accident." Rafe's heart did a fast, stupid skip. Gentle on purpose. His brain, unhelpful, supplied several ways to demonstrate this in a lab-approved PG-13 manner. He wrestled that thought into a closet and nailed it shut. "Exchange," said the drone. "Contestants will offer a safe current with contact duration not to exceed 1 breath. Consent to touch is required from both parties." Kal'Sha stepped forward and lifted her hand, palm up. "With consent," she said softly. "May I taste your current?" "Yes," he said, then added quickly, "To that, consent, yes." Her fingers brushed his, and then, oh, it wasn't a shock. It was a warmth that rolled like surf, up through his palm, into his wrist, unraveling his forearm muscles one by one, as if someone had read the knots like a language and spelled "relax" back into them. He exhaled without permission. She exhaled with him, a matched tide. The veil's hum bloomed into a chord that made the tiny bones at the base of his ear feel like they were smiling. "Contestant Rafe," the drone said gently, "please release before the end of 1 breath." He let go, startled to find he had been reluctant. Kal'Sha's glow had gone effervescent along her cheekbones, like champagne deciding it preferred stargazing. "You taste like thunderstorms," she murmured, "and solder, and you taste like new battery smell," he said, and then winced. "That was more romantic in my head." She laughed, a ripple that the veil caught, amplified, and draped over the crowd. The elders exchanged looks that were probably the Virellian equivalent of, "Harmonization," prompted the drone. "Contestants will attempt to hum a shared note. The veil will judge compatibility." Kal'Sha angled toward him, very close now, their shoulders almost in the same slice of light. "Listen for me," she whispered. "I will start low. Follow but do not chase. Think of it as dancing with ears." "Dancing with ears," he muttered. "Naturally, always wanted to add that to the resume." She hummed, a note that started somewhere below words. It resonated in the hollow of his throat, found cavities he'd never catalogued, swam up behind his eyes and made them sting in the way certain songs do when you forgot you missed someone. He matched it, roughly at first, then truer when he thought less about being right and more about being with. Their voices braided, the veil leaned in, light beads along its surface flashing in complex patterns he couldn't read, like a city watching a meteor shower and counting the luck. For a moment, he forgot the elders, the crowd, the drone. For a moment, it was just the strange precision of being next to another person and making a single sound on purpose, together, without words. The note held. The veil warmed. Rafe felt the hair on his arms lift like fields in wind. Then a crack ripped a promenade soundscape in half. A bolt snapped across the far curve of the veil, a jag of harsh light, wrong color, wrong rhythm, and the hum collapsed into a shiver. Kal'Sha jerked, turning sharply toward the interference. The elders rose as one, collars flaring bright in alarm. The drone threw up a privacy dome with the reflexes of a veteran bouncer, but the damage was theatrical. A scorch mark on the veil's edge, a wobble in its song, and the collective intake of 1,000 witnesses smelling scandal. "Sabotage," Kal'Sha said, not loudly, but the veil carried her word like a gavel strike. "Someone just bit the city." Rafe's skin prickled. A silhouette on the upper walkway froze, then bolted. 2 security mechs pivoted too slow. The elders' bench erupted in intricate arguments about jurisdiction. The drone pinged for emergency protocols, and Rafe, with horrible certainty, recognized the pattern in that wrong light. A diagnostic pulse used by human maintenance teams when they wanted to override a system's self-protect. The kind you used when you were out of time and patience. Human-made. His kind of mistake, just weaponized. Kal'Sha's hand found his again, this time not for taste but for anchor. "Rafe Monroe," she said, eyes bright and furious in a way that made all her comets point inward. "We have a trial, and now we have an attack." Her voice cut clean through the crowd's noise. "Can you fix what you didn't break?" He looked at the veil's shivering wound, at the elders arguing ritual while the city bled photons, at the fleeing figure burning shoe rubber into the walkway. His pulse picked up, not in panic, but in the clean click of a problem presenting its teeth. "Yes," he said, "because sometimes the only thing to do with a mess was claim it. But I'll need my tools, and—" he glanced at the elders, then at her. "Permission to touch the holy thing without getting married mid-wrench." Kal'Sha's mouth curved, battle-bright. "Granted," she said. "On the record." The drone brightened. Clarifying intent trial paused for emergency mitigation. Contestant Rafe authorized as acting consort engineer for the duration of incident response. The crowd leaned in. Somewhere, a new banner unfurled. "Kiss later, fix now." Rafe rolled his shoulders as if stepping into a familiar exosuit and reached for the veil, every eye in Lythara Prime on his hands. By the time Rafe's tool belt hit his hips, the promenade had become a living diagram of panic, a ring of security mechs holding back the curious, elders arguing about precedents with the elegant lethality of people used to turning etiquette into weapons, and the veil itself trembling like a plucked nerve. Kal'Sha stood at his shoulder, glow drawn tight, a diplomat's poise cinched over an urgent, very non-diplomatic fury. The registrar's drone bobbed overhead with a fresh overlay, emergency right in effect, civic touch authorized, kindness standard still applies. The subtext might as well have read, "Be a gentleman even with the holy wiring." Rafe thumbed open a compartment. No galvanic clamps, they'd taken anything that looked too bitey, but he had patch leads, a field calibrator, and a spool of smart fiber he could teach tricks. He looked at the scorch on the veil's edge and, beneath the damage, the same wrong rhythm he'd heard in the sabotage pulse, a human diagnostic signature used like a pry bar. His jaw tightened. "Someone tried to force a bypass," he said. The veil flinched and tore microfilaments. He caught Kal'Sha's eye. "I can mend it, but I'll need a steady ground. If I arc into the promenade, we'll be braiding more than vows today." "Use me," Kal'Sha said, already stripping a silk-thin wrap from her forearm to expose the quiet galaxy beneath. At his alarm she added calm and bright, "Diplomatic privilege. My current can buffer yours. The veil knows me. Also, if you faint, it will be aesthetically pleasing." The corner of her mouth tipped up. The drone helpfully displayed consort assist buffering, permitted with consent. Rafe swallowed and nodded, fighting a smile he absolutely did not have time for. They knelt together at the veil's wounded edge. Rafe mapped the tear with the back of his hand first, not touching, just feeling for heat and harmonic. Kal'Sha mirrored him, humming low, a tone he recognized from the trial. It steadied his breath to match hers, ridiculous as that was with half the city watching. "On one," he said. "One." He bridged a patch lead across the damaged filaments, while Kal'Sha's palm met his wrist. Her current a warm lane he could drive in without skidding. The veil shuddered, then softened, the microfilaments relaxing from spiky to pliant, like metal conceding to a trained hand. "Who uses that diagnostic signature?" Kal'Sha asked, voice for him alone while the crowd held its breath in polite voyeurism. He heard the question under the question, is this your people's fault? Is it yours? Maintenance crews, he said. Humans, but not my team. We decommissioned that sequence months ago because it causes exactly this. You. He looped smart fiber with surgeon's neatness, his thumb steady in a way only years of bad gigs could teach. Someone dug it out of archives or got it from someone who likes chaos more than code. He met her eyes, expecting judgment, found calculation instead, and worse for his defenses, trust. Thank you, she said simply, and the veil picked up the vibrations of the words, folding them back into its music. He realized with a little jolt that she was shielding him as much socially as electrically, her presence making his touch legitimate, her steadiness a public loan of credibility in front of elders who could decide he was an insult with legs. It hit him in the sternum like an unbudgeted expense under the line item of feelings. A crackle from the upper walkway drew a ripple of attention, security mechs tracking the saboteur's path. The elders' bench, 7 luminous collars in a row, projected a writ into the air. Trial paused, investigation opened, witness statements required. One elder in particular, glow like a winter moon, leaned forward. "Human Rafe," she called, voice precise. "You grip our personhood lightly. That is good. Explain how your kind decommission a dangerous tool and yet see it used here." The crowd murmured, hungry for the pivot from romance to responsibility. Rafe glanced at Kal'Sha. She didn't nod. She didn't have to. He straightened. "We document, we warn, we teach the next crew why a shortcut is a failure wearing a clever hat," he said, earning a ripple of human laughter. "But some people keep hats." He tightened the last loop and felt the veil's tone climb, seeking its home note. "If you let me, I can trace the handshake." That pulse carried a timestamp and a signature. "We sign our mistakes. It's rude not to." "Do it," the elder said, and the writ expanded. "Authorization to trace under witness." Kal'Sha's hand squeezed his wrist once. A silent go. He slid the calibrator's prongs into the patch matrix, letting the veil's song flow through its filters. There, a burr of metadata tucked in the sabotage's tail, a little arrogance humming, a human contractor's call sign, mirrored and masked, but not well enough for someone who'd learned for fun how to jailbreak vending machines on Europa. Rafe felt the old joy surface, the puzzle click, the yes of a problem presenting the key in its own teeth. He flashed the signature to the drone. The halo translated it into a polite wanted poster. Security mechs pivoted. On the upper ring, the fleeing figure realized that anonymity had failed and did the foolish thing, turned and fired a second pulse. It hit the veil, less direct, more spite than strategy, and the curtain recoiled. The shock ran up Rafe's arm like a wild rumor. Kal'Sha caught it, absorbing the bite, her glow flaring so bright the promenade went briefly sunrise. He swore and anchored, redirecting the surge into the smart fiber loop he'd laid as a trap, the way you might take a punch on the padding instead of your teeth. The veil steadied. The crowd exhaled as one organism. "Current theft and ritual interruption," Kal'Sha said, voice calm again but edged like a newly sharpened instrument. "The penalties are public." Her glow cooled to council grey as she stepped forward to address the elders. "Esteemed bench, continue the trial as a test. Let the saboteur see that law is not a hobby." The elder with the winter moon glow regarded her, then dipped her head the width of mercy. The drone chimed, cheerful as a bell at a wedding. Emergency rite complete, veil stabilized, resuming clarifying intent, harmonization, take 2. The Banner Kids had already updated their art, currently into justice. A vendor rolled by with accountability almonds, which were definitely sugared kelp kernels, and yelled, "2 for the consort," because capitalism was a persistent species. Rafe's hands shook once, the delayed reaction of a body that had played chicken with a municipal god and survived. Kal'Sha noticed. Of course she did. She stepped in, close enough that the glow along her collarbones warmed his sternum. "You held," she said softly. "When the veil panicked, you held." And it wasn't praise like a medal. It was something smaller and more dangerous. Recognition offered palm up. "I had help," he said, because if he didn't deflect, he was going to say something with an I in it, and the drone would probably notarize his soul. She smiled, brief and bright. "Harmonization," the drone repeated, indulgent now, like a maître d' who had seen it all and still believed in the soup. "When ready," Kal'Sha tipped her head. "May I make a scandalous suggestion?" "Please," he said, dry mouth and all. "Obviously. Don't aim for perfect," she said. "Aim for true. The Veil prefers honesty to pitch." It was a ridiculous thing to say about a creature of light and resonance. It was also the exact thing he needed to hear. They hummed. The first second was chaos, adrenaline, leftover tremor, the memory of heat where her hand had caught pain, meant for him. Then the note found them, or they found it, a thread through their separate currents that held despite everything. The Veil leaned, warmed, softened, and the promenade's ads flipped in unison to one word: yes. The cheer rolled over them, messy and generous. The Elder's bench brightened to blessing grade. The drone projected preliminary affirmation, final rite by dawn, public validation required. Kal'Sha's eyes were starlit mischief and relief, and something that might become dangerous if given water and attention. "By dawn," she murmured, smug as a law that just got fed. Rafe opened his mouth to make a joke about non-refundable deposits and dawn weddings when a new overlay sliced the air. External security alert. Dissident cell dry circuit claims responsibility. Trial challenged as human favoritism. The upper walkway bloomed with masked figures, unfurling banners that pulsed in angry, staccato light. The crowd's cheer kinked into a hush tuned for trouble. Kal'Sha's hand found his, not for taste, not for anchor, but for choice. "They want a public trial," she said, voice low and delighted in a way that made the Veil purr like a smug cat. "Let's give them one." Promenade 4 became an arena, whether anyone liked the word or not. The dissident cell, calling themselves Dry Circuit, took the upper rings, their masks pulsing with jagged, desynced light that made the Veil flinch at the edges like a skittish animal. They unfurled banners that said, "No favor to flesh without glow," and "City, not for sale," in ugly block pulses. Below, the elders reconvened with ceremonial speed, collars cooling to iron composure, while the registrar's drone blossomed a fresh overlay that snapped the moment into protocol. Public challenge received, forum trial granted. Topic: bias and bond. The subheader, very civic, read, "All parties will be heard. All lights will be counted." The crowd pressed closer, the way people do when they smell justice and drama fighting for the same microphone. Kal'Sha didn't let go of Rafe's hand. Not for optics now, not for anchoring, for declaration. "They want to argue that the Veil warmed because of politics," she said, eyes on the masks. "We will show it warmed because of us." Her glow steadied into council bright, not dimming herself to appease, not flaring to intimidate, choosing visible truth over theatrics, which ironically played like the best theatrics of all. Rafe's mouth went dry in an admiring, inconvenient way. Somewhere a vendor whispered, "I ship competence kink," and sold 3 glowing bracelets to sympathetic nodders. The leader of Dry Circuit stepped to the rail, voice filtered into an androgynous buzz. The clarifying intent was corrupted by human tools and diplomatic influence. "The Veil is a citizen. You bent a citizen to foreign will." The masks behind them flashed agreement in angry Morse. The crowd, to its credit, murmured with skepticism. They had watched a saboteur. They had watched a repair. Still, public rituals lived and died on proofs, not vibes. The elder with winter moonlight stood. "Forum rules apply," she intoned. "Each side presents. Allegation, evidence, test. The Veil will validate." Kal'Sha inclined her head. "Allegation understood," she said. "Our evidence. The repair trace signed by the saboteur, human diagnostic misuse catalogued, and the Veil's own recovery curve. Our test, a blind harmonization trial with 4 pairs, Virellian, human, Virellian not under bond, and us. The Veil will judge warmth without banners screaming at it." Rafe blinked. Of course she'd turn a riot into peer review with better lighting. Dry Circuit's leader made a scoffing gesture, but the masks behind them paused. Fairness, annoyingly persuasive. The drone split the dais into 4 petals, each facing a quadrant of the crowd. Volunteers came quickly. 2 elders with fond exasperation at being typecast, 2 human techs who radiated, "This will be a story at the bar forever," and a Virellian student paired with a human tourist who looked like they'd come for noodles and stayed for constitutional law. "Rules," the drone trilled. "No phrase, I promise. No external devices. Honesty, exchange, harmonization. The Veil will score warmth on the civic scale from 0 to 8. A scoreboard unfolded above, because of course it did. Rafe leaned to Kal'Sha. "Is it weird that I'm competitive about being warm?" She didn't look at him, because looking would have been too much. He felt her smile anyway. "Win graciously," she said, "or lose charmingly." "Those are not my default settings," he said, "but I have patches." Round 1, the elder pair. Their hum was textbook, polite, tempered by decades of joint committee work and the kind of intimacy that knew exactly where not to step. The Veil warmed to a 6. The crowd applauded like a good meeting that ended early. Round 2, the human techs who fist-bumped, laughed at the wrong time, and then surprised everyone by finding a tender 5.5 that felt like friendship with potential and a running joke about voltage adapters. Round 3, the student and the tourist. Awkward and sincere, oversharing during honesty in a way that would be memed by dinner, and landing a wobbly but dear 4. Then it was them. Rafe's palms were suddenly uselessly aware. Kal'Sha angled her body to him as if there were no crowd, only the note they were about to find. "Truth," she said, and didn't wait for the drone. "I am afraid of being loved for my glow, and not the self beneath it, of being made into a symbol until there's no person left." He swallowed. "Truth," he said. "I am afraid of touching things wrong, of meaning well and still breaking something sacred, of getting one chance and flinching." The Veil thrummed, a sympathetic chord for foolish courage. "Exchange," the drone breathed. Her fingers slid into his, not courtly now. Curious, warmth rose, not surf this time but a hearth, restrained by mutual choice. He let the feeling land in the specific, her skin cool at first, then blooming, the tiny tremor where her thumb rested against the tendon in his wrist, the steady anchor of her breath. He didn't chase, he matched. His breath stuttered, then aligned. "Harmonization," the drone said, but they were already humming. The note came faster than before, as if their earlier attempt had left a thread tied between them like a bookmark in a chapter neither of them would admit to rereading. The Veil leaned. The scoreboard climbed 5, 6, 7, and then stalled. The crowd held its collective inhale. The dissidents' masks stuttered a taunting dip. Kal'Sha's gaze flicked past him, subtle as a wink, to the upper rail where dry circuit clustered. "Ignore them," she whispered. "Listen to who is here, the city, me." He closed his eyes. There she was in the sound. Not the diplomat, not the glow, but the person who made room on a dais for strangers to be graded kindly, the person who let him borrow her reputation like a voltage stabilizer and didn't keep score. He tuned to that. The Veil lifted half a degree warmer. The scoreboard blinked, thought about it, and slid to 7.5. The cheer was loud enough to shake banners. The elder bench brightened in satisfied, undramatic approval. Dry Circuit's leader slammed a palm against the rail, rattling the projector, and hissed into the filter, "Manipulation." The human fixed the Veil to favor his bond, bias disguised as skill. "Jealousy disguised as argument," Rafe said before he could stop himself, because his filter was just a man with a mop, and he'd gone home early. Kal'Sha's mouth did a terrible thing to his heart. "Objection sustained," she murmured, then raised her voice to carry. "You claimed corruption. You demanded a public test." The Veil warmed to every pairing that met with care. "This is not favoritism. It is a standard. Kindness." The word landed like law. Dry Circuit's leader spread their hands. "Then prove it with risk," they said. "Try the old rite. No touching, no hum, only words. If the bond is true, words alone can make the Veil warm. If not, you are a show." City of Light or City of Theatre? A ripple went through the elders. The winter moon elder's glow tilted, the Virellian equivalent of a frown. "The word only right is archaic," she said. "Retired for cruelty." Kal'Sha didn't look away from the dissidents. Cruel, she agreed, but clean. She turned to Rafe. The crowd softened to a hush that felt almost private. We can refuse. We've proven enough. We can be safe. He hated how much he wanted to say yes to safety. He loved even more the person he could be if he didn't. If we try and fail, he said softly, do we still get snacks? An entire city will be very kind to you, she said, and I will loan you my worst jokes. He exhaled, sold. The drone looked like a bureaucrat about to send a highly agitated email to a policy committee and then did its job. By special petition, word only, Rite authorized. Rule, speak only what is true to you. The veil will measure warmth without touch. Kal'Sha's glow dimmed to nearly nothing. Not hiding, stripping away ornament. Rafe laced his fingers behind his back so he wouldn't reach for what he couldn't have. The crowd stilled to church silent. Even the banners quieted. Kal'Sha spoke first. Truth, she said, bare as bone. You make me less alone in rooms that never had space for loneliness. Rafe's throat closed. He made the sound anyway. Truth, he said, feeling the word like friction and choosing it. You make me want to be careful with the part of me that breaks things before I understand them. The veil shivered, the thinnest rise in temperature, like a cat deciding a lap might be acceptable later. Kal'Sha's mouth bent. Truth, she said. Your hands tremble after you are brave. He laughed once, surprised. Truth, he said. Yours do before. A beat, a breath. The veil lifted another half-degree, warming enough that people on the front rail leaned in, smiling despite themselves. Dry Circuit's leader slammed the rail again, but the sound was small. Parlor tricks, words anyone could say. Kal'Sha didn't look up. Truth, she said. I am afraid of dawn. Rafe stepped into the space that offered him. Truth, he said gently. Me too. The veil warmed, slow, inexorable, as if someone had lit a sun behind silk and was walking it toward them. The scoreboard crept like a stubborn elevator past floors. 7-6, 7-7, 7-8. The drone's halo flickered, surprised into sincerity. Veil approaching blessing threshold. And from the upper ring, a new interruption. Different timbre, different courage. A masked figure tore off their cover, revealing an ordinary mouth set in extraordinary resolve. Enough! They shouted at their former comrades. You wanted spectacle, you got proof. Stand down. Dry Circuit fractured along a fault line that had been waiting for a moment like this. Security mechs moved. The crowd shifted. The veil's warmth hovered a breath below blessing. Kal'Sha's eyes found Rafe's, bright with a question he could feel in his molars. One more truth, she asked. Truth, Rafe said, the word hitting the air like he'd thrown it and trusted it to fly. I want dawn to find me still here, with you, even if the city makes fun of my sandals forever. The veil warmed by a shy notch, as if laughter were an acceptable offering at an old altar. Dry Circuit's masks flickered in irritation. The crowd's shoulders loosened, some people wiping at eyes they absolutely blamed on pollen. The scoreboard ticked to 7.9 and stalled, a tease with a sense of theatre. Kal'Sha's glow didn't spike, it deepened, like a well. Truth, she answered, quiet enough that the veil did the courtesy of carrying her. I want a life, not curated by my light. If the city must look, let it see us. Flaws included, and the jokes you think are good. A wave of gentle laughter lifted the dais. The elder bench's winter moonlight softened, approval in grayscale. The masks above rippled, a visible falter in certainty. The scoreboard considered 8 like a door it might open if properly wooed. Dry Circuit's leader grasped for the last lever. Words are wind, they called. Stake something that hurts. A sacrifice. If your bond is not convenience, let it cost you. The elders conferred, collars speaking in moderated flares. Ritual law allowed for a sacrifice clause in public validation. Rare, regulated, risky. The registrar's drone projected the clause with all the gravity of a fire alarm. Voluntary sacrifice. One custom or comfort surrendered for a cycle. No blood, no permanent harm. The crowd murmured at the smell of old law turned fresh. Kal'Sha turned to Rafe, not asking, not assuming. We can end here, she said, honest as a cut. We have enough. He could say yes. He could take the almost and walk away, blessed enough for any sensible person. Pick something you'll miss, he said, pulsed like a drumline that had run out of sense. Otherwise it's just public theatre, and my sandals are doing enough heavy lifting there. Her laugh cracked tension. Her eyes asked, "Are you sure?" He nodded, because wanting to be the man she'd already risked with was somehow reason enough. Kal'Sha faced the veil. "Truth," she said for the last time. "I surrender my glow to the city for one lunar cycle. Let my light be civic, no ornament, no advantage. See me if you will without it." A hush rippled outward as her bioluminescence dimmed on purpose, settling to the baseline flicker of a citizen at rest. Gasps, startled, admiring, a little bereft, rose like birds. The upper masks flickered, thrown off their rhythm by a woman unhooking beauty from power and choosing both in a different key. Rafe swallowed. He could give tools, he could give humor, he could give the urge to fix until there was nothing left to fix and nothing left of him. Or he could give the thing under all of that, the compulsion to control the world by touching it. "Truth," he said, a little hoarse. "I surrender my hands to the city for one lunar cycle. No fixes without invitation. No touching what isn't mine to mend. No holy things, no broken things, not even stubborn snack machines. I'll ask first." The human section of the crowd made the sound people make when someone admits their favorite sin out loud. The veil purred, indecently pleased by consent. The drone pulsed, ritual warm. Sacrifices accepted. Veil will validate. Heat rose through the dais into their feet, up their legs, into the bones that listened for music when language failed. The scoreboard slid, inexorable and finally generous, to 8. The promenade erupted. Elders bright as comets, kids shrieking, vendors launching confetti that smelled like oranges and static. Dry circuit fractured, masks splitting into those who deflated and those who doubled down. Security mechs moved with choreographed boredom that bespoke practice. The Winter Moon Elder lifted her hands. "By witness and warmth, Lythara Prime affirms," she said, words like a seal. "Pre-dawn right at first light, tether and toast." Kal'Sha leaned close enough that her unglowing skin brushed his knuckles like a secret. "By dawn," she murmured, smile reckless now that law had done its part. "We get to be very ceremonial about not touching things." He breathed out a laugh that tasted like relief and oranges. "I am spectacular at ceremonial not touching," he said. "Ask any snack machine." The veil made a noise that might have been scandalized approval. The registrar's drone intoned logistical poetry. "Final right window opens in 3 hours. Locations: Promenade 4, Skybridge 1, or Temple of Small Laughs. Witnesses may register for toast duty. Consumables are non-conductive." The crowd began its beloved migration towards snacks and gossip. The elders descended with the solemn relief of people who had successfully kept law from embarrassing itself. The upper ring, emptier now, held one mask, unremoved, watching, then gone. The aftertaste of threat, the promise of sequel. Kal'Sha turned her unlit face to him, and for a moment there was no city, only the quiet hum of 2 people who had just handed parts of themselves to a public hungry for proof and gotten back something terrifying: permission. "There will be quiet before dawn," she said, "a tradition, time to recalibrate." "Is that your word for talking?" he asked. "It is my word for not pretending we are only ceremony," she said, "and for practicing the restraint we promised." Her mouth curved. "You will hate it, and you will be very good at it." "Story of my life," he said, then truer. "Best chapter so far." "Come," she said, offering a palm, not for current, not for anchor, but for ordinary holding. He took it. The promenade parted for them not like royalty, but like tide around a rock that had decided to belong. The veil's warmth followed as a benediction. Behind them, banners folded, gossip threaded into legend, and somewhere a vendor prepped a sign that would sell out by dawn. "Consort corn, now with extra consent." Ahead, the Skybridge's thin spine, the city's pulse steady, and a horizon about to learn what it meant to watch 2 fools promise nothing they couldn't keep, and mean more by it because of that. And from the shadow of a transit arch, a quiet lens watched them go, logging their sacrificial clauses into a file named Leverage. Dawn crept toward Lythara Prime, like a rumor that might be true. the city dimming to let the sky speak. On the sky bridge, the wind carried the Veil's distant purr and the soft bustle of vendors prepping toast duty carts shaped like tiny lighthouses. Rafe and Kal'Sha stood in the liminal hush of the pre-Rite hour, fingers not touching because restraint had been publicly notarized, yet close enough that their currents found each other in the air, like two magnets pretending not to know they're magnets. Her glow, surrendered by vow, rested at a gentle civic pulse. For the first time he could read the small human things about her, the laugh line near her left eye, the way she rolled a thought along her tongue before speaking, the tiny scar on her wrist shaped like an asterisk. He wanted to footnote his entire life to that scar. "You're very quiet," she said, voice like soft metal, for a man who once negotiated with a vending machine using threats of interpretive dance. "That was blackmail," he said, "and art." He exhaled, fogging the cold between them. "I keep thinking about the sacrifice, about your light, about my hands." She tilted her head. "Regret, respect," he said, "and a little terror, which is ironically how I know it was right." Her smile was unlit and devastating. "We made space around our favorite weapons," she said. "I thought it would feel like emptiness. It feels like a table set for something else." "Breakfast," he offered. "Possibility," she corrected, and then ruined him by adding, "and perhaps breakfast." They walked the sky bridge once, twice, the way people do when the body needs motion to keep the soul from bolting. Below, the promenade readied itself, witness registration glowing in polite fonts, elders assembling with the solemn satisfaction of people about to officiate something worthy, the registrar's drone warming up its ceremonial chimes. Across the gulf of air, banners hung limp, stripped of slogans by the weight of a long night. Dry circuit had scattered into statements and denials. The city had metabolized their noise into law's slow, patient music. "Before we go down there," Rafe said, "there's a clause in the right for guests." Kal'Sha's eyebrow did an aristocratic strum. "Unexpected relatives? Spiteful ex-lovers? A feral toaster? Humans," he said, and winced. "Some of them. The kind who will insist I betrayed the tool belt by promising to ask first. The kind who will say I let alien symbolism eat me. He stopped. The words were kettle-hot and sharp. The old urge to fix their mouths with a wrench was a phantom itch in his surrendered palms. "I would like to be brave in a way that is not just loud." Her gaze softened, a tide turning. "Then do not argue with ghosts during our dawn," she said. "Let them talk to each other until their echoes tire. We will be busy." "Being ceremonial about not touching," he said. "Among other things," she said, and the air between them warmed for no physical reason at all. They descended into morning. The Veil's great arc had bent subtly toward the sky bridge, like a cat pretending it was not watching you walk into the room, while absolutely watching you walk into the room. The benches filled, humans in second-hand festival jackets and Virellians in their best neutral glows. Kids wearing foam fingers that read, "We consorted and all we got was public validation." Elders in council grey with the pleased gravity of well-oiled institutions. Even the security mechs had tied ribbons on their wrists, which Rafe chose to interpret as civic whimsy and not as a warning flag he was too tired to decode. The registrar's drone intoned, "Final rite, tether and toast. By kindness and witness, the city will observe the tethering of currents, then raise a public toast naming the bond for what it has shown itself to be. Note, do not say, 'I promise.' Note, toasters are not recognized as guests." A wave of laughter broke and settled. Nerves went with it like foam. "Tether," the Winter Moon Elder said. "State your names as you are known at home." Kal'Sha lifted her chin. "Kal'Sha en Lythara, diplomatic wing, daughter of menders, friend of small laws." Rafe swallowed. "Rafe Monroe of the maintenance decks and the bad idea that sometimes works, graduate of yelling at machines in a tender voice." "Exchange," the elder said. "Not touch. Tokens. Tokens." Rafe had brought two, a coil of smart fiber he'd braided during the quiet into a soft, flexible ring, and a tiny printed tag with a diagnostic port, useless as a tool without power, perfect as a metaphor for asking permission before plugging in. He held them up. "For you," he said. "A ring that only tightens when both sides agree." He demonstrated. Pulled alone, it relaxed. Pulled together, it hugged. And a port that does nothing until invited. Kal'Sha's mouth became a secret told to him alone. She produced from her wrap a sliver of thin, opaline film. "A veil," she said. "A small veil. It sits on the skin and echoes what you feel, not for others, for you. A mirror of internal weather. It will not lie to make you comfortable." She set it on his forearm. It warmed, then cooled, then settled on a quiet pulse that matched his breath. He touched it with the carefulness of a man who had promised the city he would be careful. "Harmonization," the elder said. "No hum is required. You have sung enough. Stand as you mean to stand when the city forgets to watch." They stood, not staged, not arranged, just who they were when exhaustion had burned off the performative edges. Rafe felt the shape of that posture settle into him, shoulders down, hands still, spine not braced for impact. A stance that said, "I will not fix you, but I will learn your schematics if you hand them to me." Kal'Sha's unlit face lifted to the veil like a person greeting a friend without expecting magic. The city breathed. The veil lifted, warmed, and then did something it had not done in a century of rites. It dimmed the promenade's ambient gleam for 3 heartbeats, long enough for everyone to see everyone else as they were without enhancement. Gasps, soft, speechless, rose like prayer. When the light returned, it came with a scent like citrus and clean copper. "Toast," the elder said, and the witnesses raised cups that fizzed with non-conductive sweetness. A child on the front bench, solemn with responsibility and wearing a sash that read "First Toast," stood on a booster and declared, "To asking first." The crowd laughed and repeated it, and the veil purred its approval. A Virellian elder lifted her cup. "To light that tells the truth," she said. A human auntie followed, eyes wet. "To hands that wait." Kal'Sha glanced at Rafe. "To snacks after ceremony," she said, very seriously, which was dangerous, because the crowd loved her even more for it. Rafe raised his cup. "To being brilliant or withdrawing cleanly," he said, borrowing her words, returning them polished by use. The cups clinked, the veil hummed, and the city stamped this morning into its memory as a story to tell badly at parties and perfectly to children. The rite concluded not with trumpets, but with 1,000 small human things, the shuffle of feet, the murmur of good wishes, the first bite of a pastry that crackled, the way strangers made space for one another without choreography. Security mechs exhaled mechanical relief. The elders signed the registry with efficient flourishes. Dry circuit, or what was left of it, was escorted into process rather than spectacle. The winter moon elder pressed a palm to each of them. "You were kind when watched," she said. "Try it unwatched." They walked back to the sky bridge through a confetti of citrus peels and ribbon curls. The valet on Rafe's arm thrummed, then settled. His hands itched and were still. His sandals squeaked, and he decided to own it. Kal'Sha's surrendered glow made room for shadows on her face he had not been allowed to see before. Thoughtful ones, mischievous ones, tired ones. He loved all of them, with a suddenness that made him grip the railing and breathe. "You are having an internal weather event," she observed, amused. "Localized thunderstorm," he said. "Chance of metaphor." "Seek shelter," she said, and took his hand at last because the city had toasted, the restraint had been kept, and dawn had signed the permission slip. Their palms fit in the unremarkable way that foretold a lifetime of not being remarkable in public and being absolutely catastrophic in private, in all the right SFW ways. Behind them, a lens blinked awake in a shadowed arch and whispered to a distant ear about leverage and cycles and vows. In front of them, the veil breathed, the city stretched, and Starbase Stories' morning holocasts penned a headline that would make vendors sell out by noon. He touched the Luminal Veil. The city declared a marriage rite. Tune in for episode 2, Snacks, Sacrifices, and the Saboteurs Who Hate Both. Kal'Sha squeezed his fingers. "Breakfast?" Rafe grinned. "And after, we can practice ceremonial not touching by fixing that vending machine, by asking it very nicely." "It will say yes," she said. "It will say maybe," he said, and together they walked into a day the city had already decided to gossip about forever.